Is SoundNotion, the weekly podcast for new music and music news. I'm David McDonald.
I'm Sam Merciers.
I'm Nate Blyton.
And I'm thinking we should probably change that. I should probably stop saying weekly.
Yes.
Because it's been a little while. But we are back this week. If you are watching the YouTube video of this episode, you might notice that the surroundings behind me are different. And so that's one of the reasons it's been a while, is that I was moving house. But I mostly have the studio set up and mostly functional at the moment, so we're back. And so we wanted to talk about a few of the interesting stories that we read in the meanwhile, because we read these stories and we're just disappointed that we couldn't discuss them on a podcast. And the first one that I thought was really cool, this is a news story in the Boston Globe about Harvard requiring its medical students to take some humanities classes, to do some arts stuff to get a medical degree. And this is not a new thing. It's a new thing for the Harvard Medical School, but the article in the Globe mentions Yale and Columbia and other big-time medical schools requiring their students to do some special training in the fine arts and analysis of the arts and appreciation of the arts. And I don't know, it seems if I were a med student, I might resent some of this. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, any article that specifically mentions viola in the first paragraph is like, yeah, totally. Definitely a good idea.
I don't know what it is, but I'm for it.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting, like it says the Yale School of Medicine, for instance, requires students to scrutinize paintings in a museum to improve their skills at observation and empathy, which to me, I took years ago, and I thought it was very fascinating, a aesthetic education workshop put on by the Lincoln Center for the Arts, which that's, if you don't know what that is, it's Maxine Greene is sort of the patron saint of this movement, but it's not just for artists, it's for anyone who wants to learn how to sort of have a deeper aesthetic appreciation for art. And they cover visual art and dance and music and all kinds of different things. And one of the things we did was look at a painting for a long time and talk about it in groups and talk about it individually. And I think that's a perfectly viable thing to do.
But what is the value to somebody getting a medical degree?
What's the value in increasing your empathy and observational skills? Well, gee, I don't know. You're going to try and observe things about patients, and empathy seems like it's very obvious how that would be helpful to a doctor.
The observational skills I can understand, but I don't understand how looking at paintings is going to improve my empathy. That sounds like a touchy-feely New Age bullshit thing.
And everybody, I mean, that's like the whole premise of the show House, is that doctors don't need that.
They don't, right? They're doing science.
Yeah.
Well, let's say that we're not going to get into an argument about whether or not appreciating art can increase one's empathy, because
Right.
I think it can.
Because we're all, of course, medical experts in addition to our background as composers.
Right. But I was listening to a Freakonomics, an episode of Freakonomics, the podcast, actually last night during my 5-hour drive home. And he was referencing a study that talked about how the effect of being rude affects medical teams. And they had NICU teams running through simulations about a baby being born, and like this bad thing happens that can lead to the baby dying. And they have a person who is acting as a supervisor saying rude things to the people in the team during the process, and it showed a noticeable, in all instances where this happened, it showed a noticeable and recordable effect a negative effect on the team's ability to effectively try to save the baby.
Huh.
So I would say, now I'm bypassing the argument about whether or not learning how to appreciate art can, in fact, increase one's empathy, which I think it can. And we can argue about that in a minute if you want. But leaving that aside, that to me says certainly, or at least suggests in that limited situation, that someone who has higher levels of empathy is probably less likely to be rude. And that study at least strongly suggests that being rude has a negative health outcome on patients. Not regarding your interaction with a patient, because we're talking about a baby and a mom who's likely unconscious. We're talking about within the medical team itself trying to execute the process. I just don't understand how empathy is not a useful thing to have in all human interactions.
Well, I agree. I just don't know that art is a way to teach empathy as much as interacting with people is a way to teach empathy. And maybe that's a part of it is a way to think about interacting with people. But another thing I think kind of cynically is that it possibly creates a new group of professionals who are going to be interested in the arts as professionals.
Mm.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, it's
people that are going to become doctors, I might add.
Yeah, a really high-salaried population suddenly interested in string music and stuff. Yeah,
the future of orchestra patrons.
Right, subscription series purchasers.
And when they retire, endowment creators, which is really the thing that orchestras need to keep going. It's not about selling tickets, it's about the big pile of money that old people give them.
Yeah, I think it's totally valid, just like in terms of the hours that doctors and people in other medical fields have to put in, just to have a structured way to get them out of the lab or out of their environment a little bit. I'm sure, I don't have any facts to back this up, as they say, but I'm sure that that's a good, healthy thing to just lead a little bit of a balanced life and so to have the educational institutions just be supporting that sounds like a good idea to me.
And I think there's probably also some value to feeding curiosity and encouraging curiosity in a field like medicine that is changing all the time, and doctors need to continue to educate themselves on the latest research and the latest treatments and diagnoses or whatever, that there's this other thing that can kind of help drive their curiosity. No?
Yeah. I'm still stuck on this art evoking empathy thing. It's one of those things where I feel so strongly that that's the case, even if I can't explain why. So I typed art and empathy into Google, the most obvious thing to do when you're trying to find some confirmation bias for your own opinion.
How many yogis did you find?
Well, you know what Big Think is, right? The Big Think project. You probably think it's a bunch of hooey, right?
No, I think it's a bunch of TED Talk McNuggets of factual information.
So all the people that come on there are just idiots, not worth listening to, I guess.
No, I think it's just a kind of oversimplification of some pretty important ideas for the most part.
Yeah.
But what about Big Think?
Well, I don't have time to read the article now, but I believe that it's the case, and I'm going to. And this is not just like a Big Think McNugget video. This is like a full article by Eric Kandel, Kandel, and he is a neuropsychiatrist, recipient of the 2000 Nobel Prize in Physiology and Medicine for his research into the physiological basis of memory storage in neurons. And that guy, who's done lots of medical and psychological and deep thinking stuff, thinks this is the only way I can support my argument right now, since I can't read the article. Hit pause and read the article. But he thinks that art does inspire empathy. So,
well, based on a headline that Sam read from a Google search in 30 seconds of Googling, I am completely convinced.
Well, I think it's true based just on my gut, and there is somebody else who's smarter and way more educated in the field than I am who agrees, and we'll rehash this on the next show, because I know everybody's going to be chomping at the bit.
You and Stephen Colbert know things in your gut.
That's right.
So we wanted to bring a couple of crowdfunding options to our audience's attention today. So if you are listening to the sound of my voice and thinking that you have, anywhere between $3,000 to $4,000 extra dollars sitting around, first of all, consider giving some of it to me because I could really use an iPad Pro. And second of all, consider giving some more of it to our friends Larry and Arlene Dunn, who are working on a project that they call the New Music Bridge to Cuba, which they are presenting at New Music Gathering in January at the Peabody Institute, and they are trying to kind of fund travel of a Cuban composer and conductor, Guido Lopez Gavilan, from Havana to the New Music Gathering. So, what do you guys think about the value of bringing these musicians in from Cuba?
It's like the artistic version of the Animal Kingdom on Australia, sort of. You know what I mean? Like,
I have no idea what you mean.
There are all these, for lack of a better description, like when you're a kid and you start learning about the animals in Australia, you're like, man, those animals are weird. We don't have animals like that. It's because early on in the history of the planet, that gigantic island, which we call a continent, broke off and was isolated, and all kinds of evolution happened in isolation. So we've been working to isolate Cuba culturally for so long, but people have still been making music and doing art and developing their culture there inside, all the limitations, the kinds of limitations that any culture has. And now we're free to start exchanging culture with them again. And to me, that's a very interesting thing. And in terms of new music and what it could mean, anytime you have the opportunity to have a lot of culturally different input come in, there's no telling what's going to happen. But it's an exciting thing to me.
So it's like the Galapagos Islands of orchestral music.
Maybe that's a better one.
It's Darwin's finches with a viola.
There it is. Show title.
The viola finches. They are the good ones.
That's exactly right.
The viola finches, yes, but except they can't get jobs. Nobody wants to hire them.
It's because the shape of the beak prevents them from eating the right kind of berry.
That's right. That's right.
We have another really cool crowdfunding project that we wanted to bring to your attention. So we'll have links to both of these in our show notes, which you can find at soundnotion.tv/SN. Larry and Arlene are funding the New Music Bridge to Cuba on Indiegogo. This other project is on Kickstarter, and it's Group Muse, which is a really cool project that we've talked about before, putting new music performance in people's homes. And apparently they are just almost breaking even on Group Muse right now. They sponsor kind of this network of performers and hosts who are interested in inviting musicians and people into their living rooms to present chamber music, classical chamber music. And it's a very, very cool project. It started in Boston. They currently exist in Boston, New York City, San Francisco, and with a big successful crowdfunding campaign here, they hope to launch in Seattle as well. So they are seemingly moving farther away from where I live, but that's okay because they're a very cool project, and you should definitely check them out. Again, we'll have a link to that in our show notes. What do you guys have any thoughts on Group Muse and their crowdfunding?
I just think it's a great project, and if you donate, one of the things you can get is the Group Muse picnic blanket, which looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, the picnic blanket, the cozy floor chair, or the pillow, or the T-shirt or stickers. Yeah, they got a bunch of kind of classic Kickstarter things, T-shirts, buttons, and stuff. But I mean, they've got a nice video.
It's funny that you call those classic Kickstarter things. I would almost call them classic public broadcasting things.
Sure, yeah. Right? Well, maybe they're associated, I guess.
Speaking of which, I have to give a shout out to, since you brought it up, my favorite public broadcasting give us money and we'll give you this thing prize of all time is NPR the NPR Toten bag, because they have a correspondent named Totenberg, and they had the bag. It's just like a bag, your just kind of generic bag to put shopping items or whatever. And it said, instead of Totenberg, it says Toten bag on it. Which is very meta, because in the South, people will sometimes call a bag a tote.
I thought you were going to say that your favorite was the 99% invisible challenge coin.
That's actually really cool too, but that's very you got to be a real fan of the show to know, because that's referencing
also, you got to want to carrying a piece of nothing around with you at all times everywhere.
Yeah, but how cool would it be to run into Roman Mars and have him say, "Hey, Roman Mars, I love your show," and he'd say, "Coin check," to be able to go, "That's right, ow."
Yeah, I would say, nope, I'm not carrying a random useless piece of garbage with me at all times. That's
Lots of people don't have any idea what we're talking about. So if you don't, go check out 99% Invisible. It's a podcast about design, and it's awesome. And art is used to treat children with autism, and one of the primary things in autism is they lack the ability to empathize with other people. Boom. More on this later.
Sam, are you still on the show, or are you just reading the internet and blabbering to take up time?
Yes.
Okay.
All of the above.
If you have any money left, by the way, after buying me an iPad Pro, after helping Larry and Arlene build a new music bridge to to Cuba, we could have a bridge to Canada too, and helping Group Muse fund their next season. You might consider putting $10 a month into Google, because they need some help. I don't know if you've heard of this small startup company.
They're barely scraping by.
Yes. Google, who owns YouTube and is owned by Alphabet, has launched a new music streaming and video streaming kind of conglomeration. They're launching essentially a premium version of YouTube subscription called YouTube Red. So you'll still be able to use YouTube for free and do all your YouTube business stuff and watch all of your funny videos and listen to all of your favorite music. But if you've used YouTube for a lot of music, you may notice that a lot of, in particular, the high-quality videos on YouTube have ads on them. Well, if you subscribe to this new service called YouTube Red, you will get all of those ads removed, and you can watch all of your favorite music video and music performance and other things like that on YouTube without watching the ads. You will also get special privileges on your mobile devices. If you are using YouTube on your mobile device, you'll be able to save videos to watch later offline. So if you're going to, go on an airplane or something, or taking the subway in the morning where you're not going to have great internet connection, you can download some videos to watch. You can also play just the audio from videos, so that if you want to just stream the audio from a really long music performance that you have on YouTube, you can do that and not take up the bandwidth for the video, which is super cool. You're still living with the YouTube compression for everything, which is maybe not the best. But this is a new product, and it comes along with, if you get the YouTube Red subscription now, you also get the Google Music thing that has been around for a few years. And if you were previously a Google Music subscriber, you automatically get added into all of this other stuff as well. So that all of that stuff is coming together. And this, I think, is a really interesting play by Google to compete with Spotify and Apple Music, because those guys, the Google Music stuff is pretty directly competing with Spotify and Apple Music, but those guys don't have a video platform like YouTube. Nobody has a video platform.
YouTube itself, just YouTube, is the highest used music streaming service, period.
Yeah, did you have data to back that up? Or are you just making up things left and right today?
This is what New York University Steinhardt School of Culture professor Larry Miller, who he teaches music business, so suck it. He said this. And so what's amazing to me is that it holds that position, and it's video format, so people are willing to chew data up in order to experience music through YouTube that way.
Yeah.
So to me, it says that the way YouTube has figured out how to, or like Nate said before the show, like it's way easier to find the classical music you want on YouTube than on anything else, right? So the way YouTube handles music and finding music and suggesting music based on what you've listened to seems to work really well.
Yeah.
It's to the tune that people are willing to, have their wife scream at them on the 20th or 23rd of every month about how you've gone over again, Sam. And another interesting feature that the same guy, Larry Miller, you actually have heard of that guy, Dave?
Yeah.
Yeah. Another interesting thing he talks about is the offline mixtape feature, which is similar to what was it called, Discover on Spotify,
yes.
where it will generate a mixtape or a playlist for you, but it refreshes it on a daily basis, which is kind of cool.
Well, and so then it can cache it offline for you automatically.
Yeah, so daily it will cache it for you offline automatically, yes. Did you come up with that word, Dave?
No, I'm pretty sure Apple Incorporated came up with that word.
Well, they design beautiful things, including words.
Everything is magical.
Yes.
The Apple Pencil is magical.
So yeah, if I'm interested in a music streaming service, I think this is the one I would be most interested in. I mean, I use Spotify, but I use the free version on mobile.
Well, what's interesting, I think, about YouTube Red compared to some other music streaming services is that YouTube Red includes some amount of money that has to pay for the licenses for the streaming service stuff that they already have, but some of that money is also having to go to regular YouTube creators who are putting their stuff up on YouTube. So not all of that $10 is getting spent the same way that it gets spent when you give it to Spotify or Apple Music, which is pretty interesting. And it's also not clear how that money is divided amongst YouTube creators. Like Vivo is going to get a huge chunk of this subscription money, and we don't really know how Google or YouTube is going to decide how much of that Vivo gets and how much of that independent Joe YouTube creator gets. Even really successful YouTube creators who are, in the top few hundred who just do this as a living, which if you're listening to this and you're not aware, there are people who, as their primary source of income, make YouTube videos. And we don't know exactly how those kinds of people are going to get paid from YouTube Red subscriptions. And that's, I think, something that we have yet to see. But it is something that YouTube has, over the last year or two, tried harder to figure out how we are going to pay people like, what's the guy's name that does Song a Day Man? Jonathan Banks? Something
I haven't
like
looked
that.
at him. Is he still doing it? I haven't looked at him in so long.
Yeah, he's thousands in now.
Yeah.
But he does that for a living now, and he writes music and puts the recordings up on YouTube every single day. And we don't know exactly how he is going to get from this, but they've been implementing some more subscription kinds of donation type things that YouTube creators can do. And YouTube creators have also been kind of going outside of YouTube to work on those sorts of things as well. John and Hank Green founded Subbable in 2012-ish, and Subbable was recently purchased by Patreon, which is founded by one of Sam's favorite guys, Jack Conte. So these are really designed to help audiences directly support people, and this YouTube Red thing is a little bit more indirect and maybe a little suspect. So we'll see how YouTube creators react to their paychecks in the next.
It makes me wonder if it's going to hurt the kind of YouTube people that I love. So, I hadn't thought about that until you started digging into that, Dave. Maybe I won't use this subscription service in protest. I don't know.
Well,
it's early yet. I'm sure we'll have an article in a couple weeks outlining how this
it's going to have to be a while, because I think there's a free trial.
Yeah.
I don't know how the free trial is going to pay those people either.
Well, there's another thing. Like, how do artists get their music, for instance, on Spotify and Apple Music? Like, they can't just decide I want to have it on there, right?
They get it on there through a distribution system. So the same way that you would get your music in the iTunes store, you can also now get your music in Spotify and Apple Music.
Well, it doesn't go into detail about this, but like right now, like if we formed a band right after the show was over and recorded our first album, by the end of the day we could have it all on YouTube, like regular YouTube, right?
Are we getting the band back together?
You would do so it's like a new version of the old YouTube partner agreement. If you ever did a YouTube partner agreement to put ads on your YouTube channel, it's the same kind of partner agreement now. It just has new terms that deal with the YouTube Red stuff.
Okay, so but you can still like there's it seems to me like there's less standing in your way. It's a more direct route to having music from artists at any stage in their career be on the streaming service that people could find potentially.
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that there's a lot more to know about it, considering you say Larry Miller is a serious guy and he's the person they were talking to about this article. So
it's a serious thing. I don't know if the world has room for this many streaming services. Just this past week, actually, one of the major streaming services in the United States shut down. And got purchased by Pandora. Rdio is no more. Rest in peace, Rdio. A lot of people really liked Rdio for their design. They had a really beautiful web interface, and they also really emphasized full album listening as opposed to individual track listening, which is something that a lot of people really valued. They had pretty good metadata compared to some other services, and they were recently purchased by Pandora, who does not do on-demand streaming. They just do the web radio thing, but they said to some journalists this week that they are going to be launching an on-demand service in 2016.
All right.
How is Beats Audio doing?
They're Apple Music now.
Oh, I didn't have any idea that was the case. See?
Yeah, they got bought by Apple, and then that's what Apple Music is Beats.
Okay.
That's right.
So the only reason that I'm reminded of it is that this phone that you gave me to replace mine that crapped out came preloaded with Beats Audio. So when I'm digging around in the internal menus, I will see something about Beats Audio periodically.
Oh, that's a different thing. We'll talk about that later. That's a different thing. Beats, that's from the Beats hardware thing. That's not from the Beats Music thing.
All right.
Also, in streaming music service news, since the last time we talked, you can get Apple Music on an Android phone. So if you are an Android user and you've been wondering what this Apple Music thing is all about, you can check it out now on your Android device, which is, as a person who's into technology, I still find it a little difficult to believe that Apple made software for Android. That kind of blows my mind.
Well, I mean, iTunes is on Windows and stuff, you know?
Yeah, but it wasn't always that way.
Right, exactly.
You used to have to manage your iPod with, and those of you that are younger may not remember these things called iPods, which is insane that they're like, 12 years old now. But anyway, iPods on Windows you used to have to use Music Match Jukebox to manage your tunes on your iPod until they finally came out with iTunes for Windows.
Yeah.
They even made Safari for Windows. It was not good. Sam, what's up?
Speaking of streaming services, this is not like a huge new music kind of story, but I think it's worth mentioning since we always talk about streaming services. Adele, who is gigantically popular,
I've heard of her,
has pulled a Taylor Swift, and she is not having her. I don't know about about YouTube Red, but she is not having her music available on Spotify or Apple Music, her new album.
Yeah, so like Taylor Swift, she's on an independent label, and so she's got a lot more control over that kind of thing.
Right.
And like Taylor Swift, also, she didn't exactly pull her stuff from Spotify. It wasn't on there to begin with, but she happens to have just released a new album that everybody's excited about and is kind of disappointed to not find it on Spotify.
Yeah.
I would listen to it.
I never knew this, but her this is sort of a side note, but her albums are named 19, 21, and 25, which I guess are the ages she was when she released them. That's actually interesting to me. Huh. I didn't realize that was the case. But I should know more about Adele because my students are all gigantic, rabid, screaming fans.
Really?
Yes.
Well,
yeah. So they were a little disappointed when her new big hit has the same 4 chords in the chorus and the verse, and I pointed it out to them, and for some reason that made them upset.
Well, then they should write some better songs and send them to Adele.
Well, I don't think it's a bad song because of that. I just noticed it, and I said you should notice it too. Not that it's good or bad. It's just something that an expensively trained musician as yourself should notice.
All right, I'm convinced.
The New Jersey Symphony has a female music director, and I'm assuming it does. The article doesn't get into it, but I think it's for the first time ever. And her name is Xian Zhang. I'm 100% sure that's right because the first pronunciation site I found on Google said that's the way you say it. Xian Zhang. She is formerly in 2002. She was a assistant conductor with the New York Phil, so it's certainly not a big surprise. I mean, she's a name that people know. But I thought it was worth mentioning. New Jersey Symphony now has a female music director. She is signed on for a 4-year contract. And, yeah. That's all there is to say about that.
I would like you to notice that I have yet to make any jokes about New Jersey and them having a symphony orchestra.
What are you going to do about it?
I'm just saying, I didn't make any jokes. You made the joke.
Yes.
So you can send your hate mail to...
Chris Christie.
To Patrick Gulo.
Exactly.
Sam is on Twitter at Pat Gulo. And if you have issues with his takedown of New Jersey, that's where you can take them.
That was a pretty weak takedown.
Well, you can work harder next time. Yeah. We'll give you your phone number.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for this week's episode of SoundNotion. Thank you so much for listening this week. You can find links to all of the various headlines that we talked about at soundnotion.tv/SN, where you can find more about all of the things that we spoke about. You can also find links to us on Twitter and on Facebook and where other places where we are. I don't think we're on Snapchat. I don't think we're on Periscope, but we could do some other things.
Apparently,
Instagram.
if we want to reach the kids, we need an Instagram account because it's the thing now. Apparently.
Yeah, you got to Instagram and Snapchat to reach the kids these days.
Take some square pictures.
You can actually take non-square pictures on Instagram now. This is like a revelation.
Hold on.
Really? Yeah.
That was my biggest beef with that platform is like you could only take square pictures, and it drove me nuts. Because if you take it with your...
we got that cleared up for the wrap-up.
People love hearing our banter. That's the draw here, really.
Is it?
It is.
Okay. Well, banter.
Yes. Well, I'm done bantering.
Okay. That's the stupid hat. See? That's my banter. Actually, it's actually a pretty cool hat. Sorry. The University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Nice hat.
Thank you. Yeah. It's cold in my office.
Your office is in Alabama. I refuse to believe it's cold.
Well, they don't insulate houses very well in the South because it, quote, doesn't get cold there.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's going to do it for this week's SoundNotion. We would love to hear more from you on Sam's hat, on YouTube Red, on any of the things that we spoke about. And you can get in touch with us on Twitter. We're at SoundNotion. I'm at Dave McDowell. Nate is at Innate Tree. Sam is at Housegoy, not at Pat Gulo, but you can talk to at Pat Gulo, and we would love to continue these conversations with you there as well. Thank you so much for watching or listening, and we'll see you back next week.
Art equals empathy.